A little over a month had passed since Martha Weissman's funeral when the conversation about the inheritance first arose in her daughter's home. Until then, the family seemed to have tacitly agreed not to broach the subject. The loss was too fresh, too much remained unspoken, accumulated over years of rare meetings and infrequent calls. That evening, when it was already dark outside and a soft yellow light glowed in the kitchen, Helen set 2 mugs of tea on the table and, sighing, looked at her daughter. "I suppose it's time to go to the notary," she said casually. "After all, Mom left the apartment. And the things there, antiques furniture. Some of it must be worth something." Sophia looked up from her phone and raised her eyebrows slightly. "Why?" she asked calmly. "What do you mean, why?" Helen asked in surprise. "To open the inheritance case. To formalize everything properly." "Oh," Sophia replied briefly, and after a pause added, "You won't get anything." Helen froze, her mug halfway to her lips. "What do you mean, I won't get anything?" she asked slowly. "Quite literally," her daughter shrugged. "Grandma left everything to me. There's a will." At that moment, Mark, Sophia's younger brother, entered the kitchen. Hearing her last words, he paused in the doorway. "Wait," he frowned. "What do you mean? Everything to you? And me? I'm actually her grandson, too." "Mark," her mother responded irritably. "Legally, grandchildren have almost no rights if there's a will." "Almost?" he asked. "But why Sophia? Why, everything to her." Helen turned her gaze intently to her daughter, as if trying to discern a catch in her expression. "Are you sure she wasn't joking?" she asked suspiciously. "Mom loved strange conversations towards the end of her life." "I wasn't joking," Sophia replied firmly. She said so more than once. "And why such generosity?" Helen persisted. "Are you special?" Sophia exhaled slowly. "Probably because I was there," she said. "Because I went to see her. I bought medicine. I cooked. I cleaned. I stayed with her when she was sick. And didn't I call?" her mother flared. "I asked you to go. You're my daughter. You did it at my request." "No." Sophia shook her head. "I'm not a schoolgirl anymore. I went of my own free will. Besides, you were always grumbling about me hanging out at Grandma's and not having time to do anything at home." Mark snorted. "So what now? Should I give you the apartment for that?" he snapped. "It was her decision," Sophia replied calmly. "She wanted me to live there. She said it was a memento of her family. She asked me not to sell it." "Nonsense," Helen snapped. "Everything valuable needs to be taken apart, renovated, and sold. The apartment is in the center. It's worth a fortune. We could put it up for auction." "I won't sell it," Sophia said. "I'll live there." Helen stood up abruptly, drawing herself up to her full height. "I'll go to the notary tomorrow," she declared. "I can't believe Mom would do such a thing." That was the end of the conversation. The next day, Helen did go to the notary. Returning home that evening, she was unusually silent. Only later, over dinner, did she slump heavily into a chair and say, "There is a will, and it's real. Everything is in Sophia's name." "You see," her daughter replied calmly. "But there was a different will before," Helen almost shouted. "It divided everything equally. She changed it 3 months before her death." Sophia looked at her carefully. "You really don't remember anything?" she asked quietly. "What am I supposed to remember?" her mother replied irritably. "Grandma was very ill then," Sophia said. "High blood pressure, threatened with a stroke. She needed care. She called you, asked you to come, but you kept putting it off. Then she said she was ill. Then she went on vacation." Helen turned pale. "Are you saying it's my fault?" "I mean, she understood everything," Sophia replied. "And she drew her own conclusions." Mark, who had been silent until then, intervened. "I had exams. Then I wanted to rest. I'm human too." "Then go ahead and relax," Sophia said coldly, leaving the kitchen and slamming the door. After that, the topic of inheritance was never brought up again. But strange things began to happen in the house. Helen started making breakfast. Mark became unexpectedly polite. Dinner was always served with something hot, and in the evenings, Sophia was brought tea and cakes. She watched this warily, but didn't ask any questions. The answers came naturally. On Sunday, over a sumptuous breakfast, Helen smiled kindly at her daughter. "We're family after all," she began. "We shouldn't fight over money." Sophia put down her fork. "Speak frankly," she said. "What are you planning?" Helen sighed. "We've decided that the inheritance should be divided equally. Between the three of us." "Decided?" Sophia asked. "That would be fair," Mark interjected. "You can live in the apartment. We'll simply appraise it, and you'll pay us our shares." "And if I don't agree?" Sophia asked calmly. "We can sue," her brother muttered. "Go ahead," she replied. "I have a will. And a lawyer." She rose from the table. "I'm moving into Grandma's apartment soon. You do whatever you want." When the door closed behind her, Mark looked at his mother in confusion. "What now?" Helen shook her head slowly. "We'll go on living. Without her. And without the inheritance." Sophia's move was quick and almost silent. She didn't make a scene, didn't pack her things ostentatiously, and didn't say goodbye. One morning, Mark simply noticed her room was empty. The closet was open. The shelves were bare. Even the old framed photograph was gone. The house grew unusually quiet, as if some important part of the familiar routine had departed with Sophia. Marta Weissman's apartment was in the old part of Bern, in a building with high ceilings and creaky stairs. Everything here oozed the past: the massive doors, the worn parquet floorboards, the antique sideboard that her grandmother had treasured like a relic. Sophia felt a strange calm, alone there for the first time. It seemed as if her grandmother was still nearby, in the smell of old books, in the creaking of the floor, in the quiet of the evenings. For the first few weeks, she barely unpacked. She worked remotely, cooked simple dinners, and sat for long periods by the window, gazing at the narrow street below. Sometimes she felt sad, but more often, she felt relieved. She knew she had done the right thing. Meanwhile, in Helen and Mark's house, irritation was growing. Her mother increasingly recalled the past, replaying conversations with her mother, rare visits, and postponed trips in her head. She couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't so much the apartment that had been taken from her, but something more: the right to be in charge, the right to decide. "She's simply written us out," Helen told her relatives over the phone. "As if we were strangers." "It's unfair," Mark echoed. "We're no worse than she is." Advice poured in. Some insisted the will could be contested. Others spoke of moral pressure. Helen listened to everyone and nodded, increasingly convinced that giving in simply wasn't an option. A month later, Sophia received a letter from her lawyer. It stated that Helen had filed a lawsuit to invalidate the will, citing Martha Weissman's poor health in the final months of her life. Sophia reread the letter twice, then slowly folded it and placed it on the table. She had expected it, but still felt an uneasy lurch inside. That same evening, she called her lawyer. "Don't worry," he said confidently. "The documents are impeccably drawn up. There are witnesses, there are medical reports. They have little chance." The court hearings dragged on for several months. Helen looked aged, but she held a defiant demeanor. She spoke of family values, of ingratitude, of how her mother was not herself. Mark nodded in agreement, occasionally interjecting comments about how he simply wasn't heard. Sophia listened in silence. When given the floor, she spoke calmly and briefly about visits, medications, sleepless nights. She didn't accuse or raise her voice. She simply recounted the facts. The decisive testimony came from family doctor Martha Weissman. He confirmed that the woman was of sound mind and fully aware of her actions when she made the will. The court's decision was expected. The lawsuit was dismissed. After the hearing, Helen tried to approach Sophia. "Are you satisfied?" she asked quietly. "Did you get your way?" Sophia looked at her wearily. "I simply fulfilled my grandmother's wishes," she replied. "Nothing more." "You could have shared," Helen said bitterly. "And you could have been there," Sophia replied just as quietly. They parted without saying goodbye. 6 months passed. Sophia was gradually settling into the apartment. She did some minor renovations, but kept everything that was dear to her grandmother. Sometimes neighbors would drop by, the the very ones who remembered Marta Weissman when she was young. They'd drink tea, reminisce about the past, and Sophia felt she'd made a difference in staying here. There was no news from Helen and Mark. Only once, Mark wrote a short message. "Mom's having a hard time. She's sick a lot." Sophia stared at the screen for a long time, but didn't reply. She didn't feel anger, only fatigue. One evening, while sorting through old papers, Sophia found a letter in her grandmother's handwriting. It was addressed to her, but dated a month before her death. "If you're reading this, it means it's already happened. I know it won't be easy for you, but you're strong. I'm not punishing them. I'm simply thanking you. Take care of the house. And yourself." Sophia carefully folded the letter and put it away in a drawer. It was raining outside, and the old house sighed quietly, as if agreeing with every word. She knew this story was over, but life wasn't.